him to become a comedian wasn't that much of a stretch for me because he literally was sick.
Told y'all.
And watched comedy for 10 years. You know what I'm saying? So
No, I'm sorry to cut you.
No, it's good. So it wasn't as much of a stretch for me that most people was like, man, this motherfucker trying to do stand up, and I'm like,
oh, I'm sorry, my bad.
I'm like, the nigga been hosting a room. That's just like if Knowledge decided to do stand up. I wouldn't be surprised. But the nigga been around it so much that if he decided one day,
but let me say this. Let me say this. I wasn't familiar with what Lil Duval was doing on the rap scene. But when Lil Duval years ago was coming to All Jokes Aside, it was clear that it wasn't rap that he was focused on.
I'm saying Real Hustle Tuesday was a comedy show that T.I. did every Tuesday.
I didn't know he was around that long.
Damn, absolutely.
Yeah, he was Rolling Powell back then.
I remember Rolling Powell, but I still didn't know that.
And an absolute beast.
Really? Damn.
Lil Duval ain't no joke when it comes to stand-up comedy.
Yo, you not in our lane, so quit acting like we rockin' the same. What's Funny Comedy Podcast? Are you not entertained? It's time to man up. My live people, put your hands up. From improvisations to stand-up, we band up. These haters overheated. We going undefeated. Sit-downs and live interviews is what the culture needed. A new monopoly for black comedy. We give it to you haters, straight, no chaser. And no apologies, baby. The real and Knowledge bet got it set, live and direct, like rapid gunfire from a tech. Wow, Shaplow, move from the gate now. All these other pods got escape now. What's funny to you? Me? What's funny to you? What's funny to me?
You don't want to make everything about race, but when you see a Ocean's 11, and you see how Hollywood and some of the white talent in the world who are already successful. There's no downside for you all getting together and you vacation somewhere and y'all laugh together. And you got all these stories.
Yeah, Will Ferrell and them had it on Smash.
Yeah, hey, you know what? Let's put this. Let's do this.
Austin Powers.
You take $5 million less, or you take $2 million less, or whatever. Or let's etch out a week in our schedule. Let's just do it.
Yeah, like
and you look up and it's
done.
You
ever seen movie 43? I think that's the movie that 100. If you ask 100 people, 97 people haven't seen it. But it was the most star-studded film I've ever seen.
I'm like 96.
Yeah. So if you never seen movie 43, it's Halle Berry, Hugh Jackman, it's Gerard Butler. Like I'm talking Scarlett Johansson. Everybody's in one film, and nobody really knows about it. And
listen, I did Chirac. One of my first major films, and I was fortunate enough. Spike knew who I was. Spike Lee knew who I was. He gave me the size to what I was supposed. I was reading it for 3 days, and the character I got to the audition. Spike was like, "How you doing?" I'm George. He's like, "I know who you are," and I was like, "Okay, cool." He's like, "Here." He gave me a totally different character. He said, "You got 15 minutes. Read that. Don't worry about that character." I did that. I wrote a couple of different things. I went back in there 15 minutes later. I got the part, and I was able to be a part of an iconic movie that should have, in my opinion, been much bigger than it was because the collaboration of talent that was in the room and that was on the set was phenomenal. It was by no means, it was. So my thing is like people are able to do that. They. They're able to come together and say, and yes, a paycheck has to be involved, but I think more of a desire for it to be done it trumps, how much, time it would take or how much money it would take, because TV producers, if you came with 7 or 8, 9, 10 hitters,
heavy hitters,
they were like, let's make it happen.
But I think Chirac, in my opinion, fell short. For 2 reasons. A, Nick Cannon, we can accept you as a tough drummer, but a GD, a Vice Lord, or a Blackstone was a stretch.
Should he have not played that character?
That was a little bit of a stretch.
First of all,
like to have him like GD.
Nick Cannon did a phenomenal job.
No, and I'm not saying that he didn't. I love Nick. I've been knowing Nick since we were literal kids.
That's another one of my cats I've been knowing.
I literally just texted him a couple days ago, so I'm not shitting on Nick. But for other people that don't know him, that's a stretch.
And that was tough for Chicago anyway. For the timing of it, what we were going through as a city at the time.
Yeah.
I understand some of the pushback in regards to that particular film. I was just talking about kudos to them getting the film made. And the fact that I was
and putting people to work here in Chicago.
Oh,
like
man,
when movies
so
get made.
We did do that.
Barbershop,
we did do barbershop.
You know, George Tillman, you know, he was another cat that, you know, made sure that he got a bunch of people collaboratives together. But I mean, when you talk about big names, you talk about people who have been honing the craft on a high level individually and then putting them all in one space is what I think needs to happen for comedy. And yes, I know a lot of comedians have been on different shows, and a lot of comedians, there is no debate. Chicago does and always have had the coldest comedians in the game. And I'm not saying that because I was a part of honing that and I was a part of that culture. I'm telling you that because that's facts. And that's not taken away from New York. They ain't taken away from Atlanta. That ain't taken away from DC. They got some of the country is rich and full of comedic talent that is top notch. But when you're talking about a city that harbors the most and the best, I challenge anyone out there to do a show, do a tour, do a movie.
Has there been a Chicago versus New York type comedy?
I mean, we did it in Houston and lost for obvious reasons. But you made a great point as far as like a lot of people don't know I started in LA. I started my comedy career actually in LA, right? And niggas from Chicago was bodying the stages so hard. Like, I thought I was decent. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm the decent LA nigga. Right? So then some Chicago niggas was coming, and I wasn't shit in comparison.
Oh, no.
And I was like, what the fuck is going on in Chicago, bro? So I packed up my shit, and I moved back here. Damon helped me. George helped me. And that's how I became even acclimated in the Chicago comedy.
You wasn't
scene.
the only one. Many comedians
I had to come back.
Came here or came back here.
Yeah.
Once that renaissance happened and once that explosion happened, you know, David Edwards, good friend of mine, you know, Dave ended up spending years here honing his craft. And he'll tell you when you talk to him, it was once he came to Chicago, of course he was already talented and he was already funny. But once he got a few years cut from that Chicago style of comedy and that Chicago level that needed to be reached. You know, that's why a lot of comics did not make it here. But the ones who did, I mean, when you look at the list, you know, from Coffrey to, you know, to Corey Holcomb, to D. Ray, to my cousin Damon Williams, the list goes on and on and on and on.
We're effective because we don't have a niche, right? Like you go to New York, they talking about subways, African cab drivers. They have shit that they talk about, right? LA, they're gonna talk about how fit everybody is.
What is your POV and all of that, you know, which is also important though.
But here you just got to be fucking funny. They don't care about none of this cab driver shit. Is it funny, nigga? So
now it makes sense when I meet people like Hot Sauce that came up from St. Louis. Like I had to be her.
Yeah, absolutely. Because everybody was hearing about it.
Everybody who's great has came through here at some point, from Red Fox to Richard Pryor. Like I'm talking.
Well, Richard from here. He was in Peoria. We own him.
Yeah, but
we claim him.
No, but I mean, but he still slid through.
We claim him.
But he still slid through. Is the point. But yeah, it's a mecca. It's the mecca, in my opinion, for comedy. And if you want to be a non-denominational kind of just clever comedian, this is the place you got to be, because you don't have nothing. You can, like, you go to Atlanta, you're going to see a lot of people talking about the gay people or strip clubs or whatever. We don't have none of that type of shit here. So we don't have a crutch. So we just force
talk about everything.
Funny.
Just every no topic is off.
Yeah.
You know, my first OG was Sinbad. That was my first comedian who, took me under his wing. And he was a total polar opposite style that I had. I was probably
the
even
funniest
rawer,
clean person
probably
ever.
even rawer.
Yeah,
He's just always been clean, but he saw something in me, and he was like, "No, kid, I really like what you're doing." And he flew me out to New York. The first time I ever went to New York,
out?
I got flued out.
I
got flued out. And when he was filming Afros and Bell Bottoms, he wanted me to see that, and I came with him and I met his family and I was a part of that whole. In fact, when you go and look at Afros and Bell Bottoms, I'm right like on the third row, and he took me in and told me, no, he didn't try to say, hey, George, come be a clean comedian like me. Right. He was like, no, you keep doing and honing that.
I think he knew low key. That shit is, I had the respect I have for Sinbad is.
That's my
crazy.
OG.
He was so funny. You forgot he wasn't cussing.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Like he was that kind of funny.
But
I tried that shit.
But my other mentor was Rodney Winfield.
I love
Rodney, took a liking to me, and we had a brotherhood that came from the stage because he had the most impeccable timing of any comedian I had ever worked with, and that was and his nightlife and things that he wanted to do. Me as the host of All Jokes Aside, it was more than just being a funny comedian and set up the room and get their credits right. I also was responsible for them, getting to the club, going to get something to eat after the show, hanging out and doing the things that they wanted to do because they was here for almost a week.
Right.
So he and I got a chance to bond, and I was able to take care of him in ways just as a human being and make sure he was safe and make sure he wasn't spending money. But when you but making money, you don't want to spend all the money that you making at a place. But to be under his tutelage and him to end up embracing me, Ronaldo Ray, that was I was raised by old school comedians. So like when you all talk about, does a comedian have to have a job, to be a true comedian, or is a comedian with a job as funny as a comedian without one? When I was coming up, Ronaldo Ray, Rodney Winfield, maybe not so Sinbad, but old school comics like that, they wouldn't even talk to you if you had a job.
Oh, wow.
Let alone exchange numbers with you or give you advice. They would not have a conversation with you if you still had a job. Those was much different times then. I would dare not suggest for a young comedian to not have some way to feed your family and to feed yourself and to get to gigs and not have a job. But the era I came up with, I couldn't get some tutelage or get any tutelage because they felt like you hadn't committed to the craft. You hadn't committed to being a stand-up comic because you still have a job. So their feeling was, I'm not going to waste my time talking to somebody who might not even be here a year from now. Right. And I'm dropping you gems, and I'm giving you advice, and you're going to be a mailman for the next 18 years of your life. Right. And there's nothing wrong with being a mailman, but if you're trying to be a stand-up comedian and it's a professional stand-up comedian you're talking to, he's not worried about, your route. He's worried about if what you're going to take from him, you're going to use that, and not waste his time.
Knowledge, as you sit here listening to this, you've created something special with the What's Funny Comedy Festival. Are you feeling a sense for this second year, with this show and the podcast network that this is what was missing from the city to bring comics together to kind of create a space where there's conversation, opportunities for people to come to the city in a way that maybe just stopping off at an open mic, wouldn't serve them? How are you feeling in this moment, hearing these stories? And are you feeling, kind of excited for year two and your place in Chicago comedy history?
That's a great question. So when we started year one, obviously, Mary's like a mentor to me, right? So the owner of Jokes and Notes, et cetera. When I started working with Rail, I started spending time at Jokes and Notes. And so just picking up the business side of things, right? Because that's what I was really interested in, and then helping Rail. But then as I got ready for the first year of the festival, and I knew Raymond with fraternity brothers, et cetera, but I really never got the story of All Jokes Aside. And so that's when I really got even a greater appreciation for George and that journey, et cetera. At the end of the day, it's cool to be a part of that lineage potentially, right? Like the Raymond and the Mary and James Alexander, who I never met, but part of that lineage. I just want to do something like at the end of the day, I told Sean this, I think, earlier today. Just for me, if I see someone with talent, I've always been this way. It could be a hip hop artist, et cetera. I usually think I can help. I don't know where I can take you, but if I can take you up a few levels, that's what I'm going to do. I've usually done it at an individual level. The festival is about taking maybe a mass group of people, right? Kind of a la what Russell did, right? It was his vision that took a bunch of people to new heights. And so,
don't do everything Russell did.
don't do it.
Your ass living on an island somewhere.
But it's also about strategic and partnership. And so I appreciate you, George. Like at the end of the day, I don't have a relationship with George. He knows me. I know him. We've bumped into each other, but it's this type of olive branch where he comes on to a new podcast, right? We haven't even dropped a real episode yet, but he's like, I'm down, right? Before the end, I'm like,
George
hey.
is one of the good ones, man.
But you got to
like,
remember,
100.
you was there and you was instrumental in my little brother's rise.
That's true.
And like, Lil Rel that's my brother. These cats, I love them for real. I was one of them comedians that I really did give a lot to these cats.
Right.
And I never was bitter that, my time didn't come. I got cats who I raised in this business who are now the ones that you all are watching every day on television shows and movies. And here it is. I came up with the two generations before that and watched my peers get those movies and shows and sitcoms and see some of my younger cats I know and some of the people that my fan base are like, well, damn, when is your turn is going to come? Or when and so many comedians get bitter and they get jealous and they like, well, God, what about me? I've never felt like that. I just continue to help the next set of comics that may be in my path because that's what I believe I'm supposed to do as a stand-up comic, and that's what cats did for me. What you do with your opportunities, that's up to you. And where you fall, you better get back up and keep on going so that you don't get lost in the sauce or get left behind. But he, was instrumental in Lil Rel's career back in the day where it was very needed and cats, needed somebody that wasn't going to take advantage of them, that wasn't trying to, get their money and get 25% of
Right.
something that he was barely getting, so,
Yeah, true.
Lil Rel has just as much. When I saw the festival, I wasn't a part of it, but I saw the face,
Right.
and the ups and downs of and the challenges that comics often have and sometimes have with each other, even the ones that love each other and care about each other. Once those are, once you get past those things, then of course you're gonna reap the benefits
Right.
of the relationship that you have with Rel. It ain't nowhere in the world. And I know what he's trying to do for Chicago comedians. I know what he's trying to do with you. The fact that he brought you back and pulled you into something after he then became movie making Rel, but he still reached back and said, hey, Knowledge, I didn't forget about you. I didn't forget about what you did for me. I respect that from him. So I would be remiss, if I didn't say that it's my obligation and responsibility to some
Show
point.
love.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Speaking
real
of-
quick, let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Real quick, is there as you think back along your career, because that's super solid. I asked Leon a similar question because human nature is, because I felt it a little bit with Rel. I never talked to anybody about it. It's just when one of you go, it's tough for the folks that don't go. Right. And it's tough. And that's just human nature.
Yeah.
You can go across anything. And so when you have someone like you know it's not really the talent.
Right.
You know it, like I got the funny. I'm fun. Is there a period of time before you get to the place you at today where you at some point in time in a certain place, like how haven't I gone? Like for real.
You're going to question that. And I have in my career, but the spiritual base that I have and the foundation and what I have in place in my life, that question always has to revert back to me. And I always end up saying, okay, well, what did you do or did not do? I can't point to Sid. I can't point to Steve Harvey. I can't point to DL. When I saw DL a few years ago, he said, George, you've never even known how big you are.
Yeah.
People used to always say that, that you was almost too nice. I almost looked out for people too much, then looked out for myself. But there's times when you question, maybe some of the methods that you have taken or some of the choices you have made. But fortunately for me, those answers have always come back to me. And so I think it made it easier for me not to be resentful, not to be jealous, not to be looking at brothers and sisters I truly love. I mean, we sat up all night one night, 30-something years ago, me and Chris Tucker, man, we was talking about, man, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and we're going to do this, till the sun came up. Till the sun came up. And then years later, he got his break, and then before you know it, he was this big superstar. Now I'm living in LA, and I'm honing my craft. I'm taking acting class with Chip Fields and Bill Duke. I'm studying under Rick Edelstein. But my friends are already superstars. But guess what? Chris picking me up. He picked me up in the Porsche, and he drove. He didn't forget, he didn't forget where he came from when it came in regards to me. I just got off the phone with Monique, yesterday. I was trying to go to lunch with her today. She wanted to go to lunch with me in Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta now. I said, I'm going to Chicago. She said, my sweet baby, have fun. We'll try it next week. So I've had enough good friends that also has helped me know that my time is coming, and I do feel good when they hit. I just do. Right. I'm really excited for Deon Cole and the things that he's doing and accomplishment. I truly love seeing the rise of Corey Holcomb, and remembering when he was questioning whether he was too dirty or blue, and people was giving him shit about it. I'm like, bro, have you seen Milton Berle's set? Have you seen some of these white cats' actual set? Right. You could be the next black, I'm sorry?
The Lisa Lampanellis of the world.
But I mean older cats, man, that you wouldn't even know did that blue of comedy, And I said you could be the next black Don Rickles. When Godfrey, he's such a genius, but he always been that way. Even he started out as a comedy duo, though. He was a comedy team, Godfrey and Alex. It was like Abbott and Costello, like Lewis, and Martin. But the other guy, Alex, and Godfrey came to me. He's like, man, this guy, and they started just really getting a lot of action and friction, and were really funny. But Alex didn't want to rehearse. When you got a comedy team, you got to rehearse, you got to practice, you got to write that stuff down. Godfrey came to me. He's like, man, this guy don't want to. He don't want to put in the work. I pulled him aside. The next time I saw both of them, I said, hey, man, you guys are funny. I said, but Alex, if you don't want to do this, you got to let him go. I said, because he going. Right. He going to be gone. If you don't want to rehearse, you don't want to. Soon after that, Godfrey was hosting our children's night on Saturdays, our children's comedy show on Saturdays for All Jokes Aside, by himself. And he was doing stand-up by himself. So
there was a children's comedy.
Yeah, we had children's comedy that Godfrey hosted on Saturday afternoons at All Jokes Aside, and did it for kids.
I wish something like that existed right now.
And it can,
right.
It can. So those things that you're doing,
because of more than us. They be like, make it your pussy ass.
Man.
Your goof ass.
That would be a whole different thing. Punk ass motherfucker. Yo, bro, you are 9. You cannot talk like that. No, this pussy ass motherfucker. Whoa.
Getting heckled by a baby BD is wild.
Man, young lady, your language. Young lady. No, this pussy ass nigga, young lady.
Oh my God. Speaking of opportunities, has there ever been one that either of you have turned down for a film or a TV role in your career, and why?
Yes.
Why have you turned down a role, George?
I turned down the role, and I'm gonna say it was because I wasn't willing to do what they was asking me to do. I wasn't willing to do that on camera, and I hadn't honed my craft enough as an artist to understand and bring artistry to it. So I only saw the uncomfortable things that they were asking me to do, and I hadn't honed my craft enough.
Some sexual shit?
It was sexual.
Okay, I assume anything else you'd probably be able to navigate your way through.
Yeah, because I mean I'm just extremely well endowed, and it's like, how is this? How is this? How's my kids got to see this? My lady Portia got to see this. I was like, oh man, I just I couldn't do it. What the producer said?
It's hilarious.
Sorry about that. I ain't mean to bring up. I didn't want to bring up your shortcomings.
Hey, I said on stage, I got regular dick because I'm a regular nigga. That's what I am. I'm a regular nigga.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we like Reggie's. It's no problem.
Listen,
Reggie, that's what y'all call him? Oh, that's fucked up.
hey,
That's what they call y'all?
I guess so. They don't say it to me.
Right, they said to your face.
Yeah,
No, they said to your face,
yeah,
bro.
they said to
That's
me.
all that matters. They say what the fuck they want to say to their girlfriend.
It's true. I feel like comedians push the boundaries and have conversations that are taboo, can push social change, and even talk about politics. Either of you have any experiences with being on stage and telling jokes and telling stories that push people to new understandings?
Black Lives Matter. It's not that long ago when people protesting in the streets. Rodney King, years before that was the first Black Lives Matter eruption, in my opinion. And then after the anger and after the fire was doused out, we had to write jokes about that, and had to help people heal from something that was extremely traumatic, and that will be a part of the fabric of our culture forever. In comics, you're right. We have to find the worst things that happens to ourselves and that happens to others, and find a way to turn that into stress relief. See, that's what you all don't understand. Let me break this shit down for y'all. That's what makes comedy and a comedian the toughest job in the world, and why you mere mortals don't understand that.
Just sunned me.
that we take things that the worst things have ever happened in our life. Now, you regular people, the worst thing that ever happened to you, you take to your priest, or you take to your pastor, or your best friend. I mean, the shit that you don't even want to see your own reflection. Times in your life where you don't want to see a puddle in the ground because you don't want to see yourself look at it flashing back. We take the worst things you've ever done, or the worst things you've ever said, or instead of going to your priest or your pastor, sometimes you take it to your grave. You don't tell anyone. Well, comedians, we take those same experiences, and we don't only tell you, we don't only just tell the strangers. We encourage you to laugh at it. We encourage you to laugh at the lowest parts of our lives, just so you don't feel so bad about the shit that you've done. And that takes a special human being to be able to do that on a night in and night out basis, and then turn it on themselves night in and night out, knowing that it's doing whatever bit of damage. As it heals, it's also breaking you down to its lowest denominator as a human being, just for you to feel better about that dick you sucked in the parking lot. Not you. I'm saying the general dick in the parking lot, not you specifically. But whatever the worst thing you did, you don't feel so bad anymore. Once that comedian, you must have did it. I didn't try. I'm also a psychic. So for me, that's also a part of the mystique, and that's also part of the 1% of us that's built for that, because it's only a certain kind of person that's idiotic enough to take on that challenge and to take on the burden of saying and expressing and throwing all my shit out here in order for your shit to be a little bit more bearable.
I think the biggest probably taboo backlash that I get, and I still push the jokes anyway. I just had to learn how to do it in a different manner. Is getting Black people to understand that Black men don't get to die clean, and we're always the hangman. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I go into Michael Jackson being a pedophile. I was like, I knew he wasn't a pedophile when I seen him climb a tree in penny loafers. That means he is a child. From Bill Cosby to every Black celebrity that we have, especially Black males, they drag these niggas at some point. And we be the first people that do it.
Yeah.
Like, as Black people, we let people cap so much on our behalf that it's bananas that we don't get it. Like Rosie O'Donnell, prime example. She said that if you are Black, you should understand the gay struggle. And I immediately took that shit very personal. Like there was never a straight only water fountain. There's never been a time that you couldn't be on a bus. There's no equivalent to a gay Emmett Till. So cut the cap. Like don't compare your struggle because you choose to fuck who you choose to fuck. I'm born like this. I can't change my pigment.
You can't hide
You
it.
could be gay as fuck and still fuck a woman. You can still do that. That's still an option for you. I can't be anything other than what I am. So your struggle is not the same. So I try to go on stage and enlighten people. Matter of fact, I did a show with Ed Wanda White, right, in LA. And it was at a church. And I was talking about how we were, as Black people, God's image. And they damn near wanted to ban me from that church for saying that I was blaspheming by saying that Jesus was a man of color. So most of the backlash that I get is surprising because when I'm saying something beneficial and positive, it's when I usually get the push. But when I'm doing a joke on Bad Boys of Comedy, talk about if a woman don't give me no pussy and I done spent a lot of money, I'm going to jail. That
You did
that's
Bad
a
Boys of
classic
Comedy?
bit. Yeah, I did that. I did it twice.
I didn't know that. That's a slippery slope, man.
Yeah, and what's funny, and when all the P Diddy shit first came out, I said when people was calling me, I said, I tell you one thing I can absolutely guarantee. With the absence of AI, you will never see me in any of them motherfucking tapes. And that is because just like with anything else, they know who to kind of do that shit around. They gonna test shit like pull out a sucker and put it at your mouth and see if you
See
go.
if you're going to lick it.
You gonna eat out the nigga.
Rest in
Right,
peace,
nigga.
Quincy Jones.
Yeah,
But, I'm going to tell you something. When you asked that question, there was something that popped up, and I was listening to Sean. And recently, when you talk about an impact, when Britney Griner was arrested and she was in that Russian jail for a year, almost a year, or a little over a year. To me, and you bring up, the LGBTQ element of the community, I didn't care about the politics involved. I didn't care about any of the cultural aspect of it or who she slept with. I just wanted her home.
Right.
And I got on stage and I talked about it. I just wanted, and if that was your daughter or if that was your son, you would want them home.
Right.
And when she did that interview with Robin Roberts, and she sat down and she talked to Robin, and Robin looked at Britney Griner and she said, Britney, did you think that you would ever get out of that prison alive? And she looked right in that camera and she said, You know, Robin,
You
I
ain't shit.
I was scared to death.
That's funny.
I knew then that this was the Barry White of the WNBA, and
That
I wanted that woman free. I just wanted her to say Merry Christmas
That's funny.
from the Temptations. Just one time. Just one. I just wanted to hear her say Bob, 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 digga dang, digga dang.
That's funny. as
She
shit.
could have had it. Just give me one shot, nah. Just one Bowser from shot, nah. And I took a little heat from the community, from the the LGBT, LGBT community. I took a little heat, but they know my heart.
But George, we talked about kind of the evolution of comedy.
Yes.
Do you, being that you've been in the game for so long and you've done it at such a high level, again, I do a lot of sports comparisons, right? You played it at the highest level. Do you check for any of these internet sketches? Do you watch that stuff, or that's just
No, sure I watch it. That's an evolvement of comedy. And let me say this and set this straight. And I told my boy DC Young Fly, who is nowhere near one of the people you could even put him on any of the 85 South guys, in my opinion, can you put in that category? And some of those cats who are doing skits, the Mojo Brooks and all that, they're also straight up stand-up comics. So that's different than our industry
Charlton
evolving.
White.
It's different from our industry evolving to a point where people can be comedic online, and then you book them to do a show and expect them to be able to make you laugh for 45 minutes to an hour. That is different for some comics. So I watch the ones who are good and those who I've befriended, and I watch, I'm not on it like that. I use it as a tool to get people to know, familiarize new generations of who I am, and to stay abreast of it. But I think it's brilliant. I think it's awesome for them to find a way. That doesn't mean that that they're going to be cut from a stand-up comics cloth, because they're not. You're not going through the same process. You're not going through the same pain or procedure that a stand-up comic. But guess what? You don't have to. You've got all these other tools. You have all these other avenues and vehicles that you can. You could. I don't want to say you can supersede, but you can. I don't know if it's even skipping the line, but it's just it's a different path that you're able to take that wasn't there when I was doing stand-up comedy, and people of my era was able to do, and even his. But I don't have disdain for them. I really don't. I say continue to do what you do. There's only so many skits, and those old school comedians, we better get in where we fit in. You're not going to see me doing skits and taking you to my bathroom. I done ran out of toilet paper. I'm not going to do that all day.
Right.
I'm not going to show you what's in my refrigerator and shit like that. But I will get on there and do some funny stuff, because it's a whole nother way of getting exposure. But it's a branch, and it's an evolvement of our craft.
George made a great point. So there's this tiff between internet comedians and stand-up comedians, right? And so I'm blessed to be a person that's respected kind of in both arenas, but that's because I respect what they do. Like, to do them skits, that shit ain't easy, right? To think of shit, even if it's one funny one a day and you do it 7 days a week, that's still pretty decent. Saturday Night Live, been doing this shit 50 years.
All of these skits don't hit.
No, but I'm saying it's not an easy thing to do, to keep coming up with this shit all the time. So I respect that. What I don't respect is two different people that evolved from that I don't respect. It's the people who go back and watch a George Willborn on Def Comedy Jam and then do that shit like they made that shit up themselves. I don't fuck with that. And I don't fuck with people who, like, I sat down with DC when 85 South was in Houston, because I've been knowing Carlos, I've been knowing Chico. DC was the only one I didn't really know. And so I told DC to his face, I was like, I respect you more than a lot of these people, because the one thing I can honestly say is every time I've seen you, you get progressively better, which means you care about the craft. You're not money grabbing and you're not mocking it. A lot of these people are just mocking it. And those are the people I don't fuck with. Like, if you don't take it serious and you just on some money shit, I'm gonna do skits, get 300,000 followers, go out here and bomb and do terrible. It's shitty for the craft.
Yeah.
It's not what it's not what I'm on. I don't respect it. I just don't.
But you know,
But the people who shit is funny, the Mojos, like my cousin Tierra, it's people who are legitimate, funny stand-ups that have funny skits.
Let me tell you, I am, but my mentor, Rodney Winfield, many years ago, even Michael Collier, years ago, he said, Georgie, can I use that fake intro you do? I said, Michael, you, my friend, obviously can do. One day, Rodney Winfield, my mentor, Talking Dirty After Dark, the sailor cap, in case you guys want to Google him and find out. Rodney came up to me one night here. We was in Chicago. He said, George, let me tell you something. Every comedian in the world does your opening, including me. Chop.
Nah, but that's real shit.
So, that's right. Even by that point, you know, he was, you know, I had OGs letting me know, don't be bitter about that. Don't worry about that. Keep doing your shit, knowing I've had people on my show do it, you know, and it's okay because no one makes a Big Mac like McDonald's. I don't care how many versions and how many people try, or if you make it, no one, you can make a great original burger, but no one makes a Big Mac like McDonald's. Yeah. They gonna give you the best Big Mac you ever gonna taste. So when I still do my show, and then the times that I still reintroduce myself, you could tell that I made the Big Mac.
George, you're making me hungry, and there's so hungry
George,
right now.
Close us out on just some closing thoughts, man. We're here in Chicago. You're back in Chicago performing.
Yes.
On your old time, long time friend Bernie Mac. That just share some thoughts, man. In terms, I know obviously it hits. We admire him from a comedic perspective, but that's your friend, right? And so,
yeah.
Just share what's on your mind, on your heart after we're having this good Chicago comedy conversation.
Well, Mac was different, and comedy was different. There was a bond with all of us back then because it was a different grind. There was no TV shows. There was no Def Comedy Jam. There was no BET Comedy View. There was no P. Diddy, what was the name of it? There was no shows for us. There was just us. And there was the Cotton Club, and there was Milt Treniers, and there was that actor studio over on Stony Island. There was all of these spots that you had to meet up with these different comedians who had said, we're going to go after this stuff. And you had to go there on open mics, and you had to hone that craft together. And what that did was that created an incredible relationship, a human relationship with a lot of these people and a lot of those comedians. And maybe that's why it wasn't also enabled me not to be bitter and jealous and had genuine love for when their time came to shine. But he had such a special place in Chicago comedy because we were so close and because he was so incredibly originally funny that, you know, cats, when I met Bernie, the first night I met Bernie was when I came back to Chicago. I didn't start Chicago comedy either. I started in Memphis, Tennessee. And I did that for 1 year. Then I moved back to Chicago and I tried to find out, okay, I needed to make a cassette tape because everybody was taking, a VH tape and send it, because then you was sending your tapes to Hollywood.
Yeah, and BT and all that shit.
Yeah, it was just the agents. You were just trying to get to an agent or agency. And so Robert's 500 room, my buddy mom had bought that on 63rd Street. So I said, I need to make a tape. He said, well, let's do a live show at Robert's and tape it. So that's how I ended up doing every Thursday night at the Roberts 500 room years before All Jokes Aside. But the night I met Bernie, then the other thing you had to do was go to other open mics. So the only open mic that everybody was telling me was about the Cotton Club. So everybody was there, R. Kelly and all these different groups and poets and but comedians, and Bernie was the host. And Jimmy Spinks from Car Wash would sit right in the front of the Cotton Club. And when you walked in, the stage was up here, the door was right here. And Bernie, so as soon as you walk in, Bernie see everybody that walked through the door. And it was just shooting fish in a barrel. You know, and he was just terrible. But this was raw Bernie Mac. This was like, people don't even understand just how brilliant, how long the raw funny was. So he's running this open mic deal, and I come in, and then you got the singers and the jugglers and all this shit, all these people coming up, and motherfuckers swallowing swords and shit. I'm like, when are the fucking comedians gonna come out, right? And so I go up to Bernie, I say all the name, I say, Holmes, when do the comedians come on? He said, hey, Holmes, comedians don't go on. I said, why not? He said, they don't really want to follow me. I said, well, nigga, I'll follow you. Put me on the list. And so he put me on the list that night. You know, a couple more motherfucking fire spitters came on and shit. Then I went on and I held my own because he was destroying that room every Monday night. People wasn't packed in there because they was chuckling. Right. Bernie was destroying that room. And I don't know what comedians, and I won't name them, they all know, and they may have a different story to tell. But that was the first night I met him. And after that, we was almost inseparable. And, you know, this is when he was working at Doc's Fish Place, and I'd pick him up from work, or he'd come after work. And there was just a love and for comedy that I think he spewed to comedians. And then he was so funny that comedians wanted that level of funny. Not that you wanted to be Bernie Mac, right, but you wanted to be able to demand
everybody got a bar,
a audience, and you wanted to be able to have charisma. He was cool for real, you know. That wasn't fake cool. He was just a cool black motherfucker. You know what I mean? Right. I mean, I'm cool for real. This is. I'm not faking this shit. I've been like this shit since like 7 years old. You know, it's like, and so that's what I really remember about Bernie, was just his raw talent and his love for comedians like me and Adele Givens and Ali Leroy and Evan Lonnie Lionel and Mr. Dose and Cheryl Underwood, and Beer Can, these cats, Sean Brown, the rapping Duke, he was a comedian. The guy that his name is Sean Brown, but he was a stand-up comedian that used to roll with us and go up to the actor studio over on Stony Island, like 67th or something in Stony Island, right around the corner. I lived on 66 in Ingleside. We'd all walk from my house up to the studio, just a whole gang of comedians, and we had a gang leader in a way in Bernie, because we had someone that was raw, that we could watch in real time. And he was watching us, and iron was sharpening iron. But we did have like a beacon of light to look at, and something to inspire to. So that's one of the things, and I know I had the fortunate, I had the fortunate reality of being a friend of his before the stardom, and then the unfortunate reality of that friendship not growing with his success, which happens a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Lorel did it to you, but came back. Everybody don't do that. You know what I'm saying? Some people, once they make that next move, they're like, I can't take you with me, right. And even though we didn't say it all these years, nigga, when I make it, you make it. Right. That ain't always the case. You got to wait till you make it and see if what you're going to do. It's easy for all of us to say we're going to pull the next person up. We're going to pull the next person up. But you know how hard and long it takes to do this? Yeah. Take it from somebody that's still almost 4 decades in. You know how many shows and how many miles and how many jokes, how many laughs that it takes before what you consider being your break or what society, and then that bar gets higher and higher. Now it's harder and harder, but it's easier because you go viral with just one word or just one phrase. So a cat that's been doing it 40 years, they see a cat that's now, selling out auditoriums and got TV deals, and this guy's at 4 years of comedy, and he's learning stand-up comedy. It's easy to get bitter. It's easy to feel some type of way about them. But I came up with cats like Bernie and Adele who allowed me to see the purest form of comedy and share the purest form of friendship and brother sisterhood through that comedy. So I guess I'm a little bit different, and I'm a unicorn of my own in my own right to some degree.
Well, George, you gave us amazing stories, phenomenal insight. You took great shots at Sean. I appreciate that.
Please. He built for it. Trust me.
Oh, he gonna get me after the camera.
He built for it.
I'm already knowing.
He's one of the most talented cats, man. One of the most underrated comedians, in this business. I know because I am one of the funniest cats and one of the most underrated comedians in this business. That's why I always told him, miss me with that shit. I don't care about how underrated you feel. You keep honing your craft. You keep grinding. You keep being funny. You keep lifting other people up. You keep your spirit high. You keep rooting for your brother and your sister when they make it. And you keep your heart pure so that when it is your turn, you can maximize that and you can enjoy that.
Oh, I received that, even though it was for him.
Absolutely.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's for him. That's for all of us.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
So we want to thank you for pulling up.
Thank you. I want to thank y'all for the janky ass Shay Club liquor y'all gave me. This was not the bourbon and the whiskey that he had. That's why he didn't show the bottle.
Oh my goodness.
Hey, Club Shay, you ain't got to worry about nothing. Everybody trying to pour a motherfucker a drink. You should have tasted this shit. I started to spit this shit all over this microphone, but I ain't want to be rude,
You can follow George.
My stomach started hurting. As soon as I took the first fucking sip, I almost threw the fuck up. I think it was E&J. I'm sorry.
Not Irk and Jerk. Man.
Don't tell him about my shit, God. My bad.
You can follow George on Instagram at The Stress Reliever. Make sure you follow What's Funny Today on all of our social media platforms. Like, share, follow, and we will see you all next time. I'm your host, Mila. Check you later.